Hey guys, Vong here today, and guess what? This year is the year of the plug and play. These plug and play. Anyways, we already discussed this thing already, but there's no point in reviewing it again. But anyways, yeah, Sega is bringing out their own plug and play, which we already had here. It's pretty much the same thing, but considering that it's on its 25th anniversary, Sega is gonna promote it like hell this year, along with going against Nintendo and their own plug and play, the Mini NES Classic Edition, which will come built in with 30 classic NES games. So looking forward to that. Speaking of the year of the plug and play, Wisdom Tree has a Kickstarter for their own plug and play, which will have like included with 7 of their classic games, pretty much NES games I think, and it'll pretty much just be like a controller kind of plug and play. It's nothing really interesting or something, but it's good for collectors' sake. Also, Retrobit is also bringing their own plug and play into the scene, which they claim will have over 100 classic games from Capcom, Jellico, and Data East, and pretty much other too. But yeah, I don't know if any of those games will be anything special though. It'll probably be just a bunch of NES, Super NES, and Genesis ROMs crammed into it. It'll support HDMI though, and that's really cool. I just hope that they have some kind of arcade games in there too. I mean, knowing games from Data East and Capcom, they have some pretty good arcade games, and it'll be a shame for that on that plug and play if there's no arcade games in there. Because we pretty much have played all their Super Nintendo and NES games already, so it'll be really nice to have some arcade games in a while. Also, speaking of 25th anniversary in regards to Sonic, there's also a 25th anniversary for other things too, like the Super Nintendo. That's right, come August 23rd, it's gonna be the 25th anniversary of this little guy. It'll be the 25th anniversary of the launch of the Super Nintendo, and which brings us to this video now. We're gonna discuss what it'll be like if there is a Super Nintendo Mini, or if Nintendo ever plans to make an Super NES Mini, because they already have the NES cover. We just want to know what if they'll do anything with the Super NES, because you can't have a 25th anniversary of a console and then ignore it, right? So yeah, pretty much in this video I'll discuss, or I'll tell you what I want to see in regards to if there is a Super NES Mini, and the 15 top games that I want to see for it. I mean, probably might have more than that, but a lot of them might be common games. But the games that I really want to see on Super Nintendo Minis are the ones that I am really interested in. And I know Nintendo might not include these games in there, but it'll be really great if they do. And if they did do it, it'll be a console worth buying to me. So let's take a look at the first game. This game right here. Yes, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So Street Fighter 2 Turbo here, when Super Nintendo, or before Super Nintendo was released, Nintendo was still doing all their stuff with their NES, but by launching the Super Nintendo, they need a perfect balance controls, and balance control means that they have to have a controller that revolutionized more than what Genesis could offer. And Street Fighter 2 is an arcade fighting game, and Nintendo really want an exclusivity deal with this game. And enable to have this game exclusive, or to have this game on Super Nintendo, they have to design a controller that could take advantage of a game like this. And if you know, Street Fighter 2 here, or Street Fighter 2 Turbo, is a 6-button game. So enable for Super Nintendo to be able to have a game like this, they need a 6-button controller such as this one. So yeah, this is the Japanese Super Nintendo controller. It's called Super Famicom in Japan. So if Nintendo ever release a Super NES Mini, I want them to make a replica console controller that looks a lot like this, with all these diamond layout controller. It doesn't matter if it's convex or concave, as long as they're like this, and as long as they design the controller to the roundish design of this, it'll be really good. It'll be really great. So yeah, but Street Fighter 2 Turbo, man, you can't have a Super Nintendo without a Street Fighter game in there, because pretty much the Super Nintendo controller was designed because of games like this. So if you don't have a fighting game in there, there's no point in even making a Super Nintendo Mini. So yeah, that's Street Fighter 2 Turbo here. Fortunately, they did include a lot of Capcom games on the NES Classic Minis editions, so hopefully Street Fighter 2 Turbo might be a good bundle for the Super Nintendo version of that. So yeah, that's my first game for the Super Nintendo Mini here, if they ever made one. Coming at number 2 here is this game, SimCity, a launch game for the Super Nintendo. Everybody loves SimCity. I was gonna include Harvest Moon as well, but considering that we have a whole bunch of Harvest Moon game nowadays, I really want to revisit SimCity. If there's ever a plug-and-play that includes this game, I'd buy it definitely. Considering that if it was a Super Nintendo Mini, it's gonna have save states and all that stuff. Those are perfect for games like this. So you can't have Super Nintendo without SimCity. Another third game that I want to put on Super Nintendo Mini is this game. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. And why did I choose this game? Well, one, it's a good beat 'em up, and two, it's a Super Nintendo exclusive. There is no other way you could play this game unless you have a Super Nintendo. I mean, I know there's that arcade game that everybody loves that was available on mostly everywhere now. Like, you have a remake on Xbox Live, PlayStation 3, PlayStation Network. You have it included in one of those future Ninja Turtle games, but that's the arcade game. We never got a port or a remake or whatever of the Super Nintendo version. And according to a lot of people I know, Super Nintendo version is the best one. To have a Super Nintendo Mini that has this game in there would be a godsend, and I would definitely play it just for that, or buy it just for that. Next up, this game, Final Fantasy 3. Now, I never really grew up with RPG back in the NES days, but I do have a soft spot for Final Fantasy 3. This is the best Final Fantasy to ever release. Not only that, it's pretty much the second Final Fantasy that I play, considering that Nintendo or Squaresoft never released most of their other Final Fantasy games. I did not start with the very first Final Fantasy on the NES like most other people. I mean, on the NES, I barely play any RPGs for that. I mean, the only RPG I play on the NES was Crystallis, and if I know, Crystallis is only exclusive to NES. There's a Game Boy Color version of that game, but never really liked that one. But other than Crystallis, I never play any RPGs for the NES. Even Dragon Warrior I never tried. I mean, I tried later on, but not when I still have the NES. So Final Fantasy is the first one, and it's the best one. I played Final Fantasy 2 and did not like it that much, so I prefer 3 the best. And pretty much this is Final Fantasy 6 and not 3, considering that the actual Final Fantasy 3 was never released here. Same thing for Final Fantasy 4. We got it as Final Fantasy 2, not as Final Fantasy 4. I did not like Final Fantasy 4 that much. Meaning I don't like the Super Nintendo version that much because it just doesn't capture me as much as this one. So yeah, Final Fantasy 3. You can't have a Super Nintendo without this game either. And I love this one more than the GBA version or the PlayStation 1 version. So this one's the best. Next game on our list. Everybody loves this game, including me. So Chrono Trigger. You can't have a Super Nintendo Mini without Chrono Trigger, right? I mean, there's a lot of games that tries to copy, tries to captivate, or try to reimagine all of the magic of this game, and doesn't even come close. So even the PlayStation and the GBA version has nothing in this one. No matter how many feature content they have, this one is still the best. I prefer all of the magic of the original more than all of the ones that got really. The GBA version is, or the Nintendo DS version is kind of good, but when it comes to a Nintendo DS, I expect a lot more. And the Nintendo DS game, I expect it to be a very big game, more like a remake or something. But it's actually just this, but in portable form, with all of those 2D sprites and all that stuff remaining the same. When it comes to Nintendo DS, I want Chrono Trigger to be a 3D remake. I don't want it to be staying 2D. But when it comes to the original, I want it to be like this. So if future console wants to remake Chrono Trigger, they could remake Chrono Trigger, but it better not look like a mobile game, and it better not be like outdated. But Chrono Trigger right here, if it looks like this and it plays very well, then I'll accept it. So yeah, it's kind of sad that all the remakes and all that stuff did not capture the magic of this game at all. Same thing for games that tries to use all the stuff that Chrono Trigger used. So for the Super Nintendo remake or mini, it should include this game too. So if it doesn't include this game, then it's not gonna be worthwhile to get. Now we get to the next game. This game, Mega Man X. Yeah, you can't have a Nintendo game without Mega Man there, will you? So this is the very first Mega Man game that I buy. I did not start the Mega Man series with the original. I never liked the original. When I say the original, I meant the NES Mega Man. So I basically don't care much about the old Mega Man, but I care most about X here. So X is where I grew up for. Make the original Mega Man, if you grew up with that one, that's good for you, but I never really have a soft spot for the original at all. I respect the original, I just never grew up with the original. Even though I own an NES, I did not start with the original. And I did play all of those Mega Man games when the GameCube collection came out. Same thing for the PlayStation 2 collection. But yeah, after playing this one, going back to those kinda seem awkward. So yeah, even though I play them and they're good games, I did not like them as much as Mega Man X. So a Super Nintendo Mini has to have this game. Otherwise, to me, it's not worth buying either. Other games to be included on Super Nintendo Minis. This game, Earthworm Jim. This is the first game in the series, but they could either include this one or the second game. I prefer one or the other. I prefer the second one more though, but if you like the first game, that's good. I just put this one up here because I can't find the second game now, but yeah, Earthworm Jim is a really great game, and a Super Nintendo Mini that has a plug and play that included this game will be a joy to play. Next up, this game, Top Gear. So Top Gear is a 3D perspective racing games that plays a lot like Gran Turismo's and Gran Turismos and all those other driving games out there, but kind of like if you're playing Outruns or play like Rat Race and all that, it's kind of like those, but racing instead of just driving all the way. So yeah, it's a pretty good game. You choose a vehicles, you travel through a whole bunch of countries, taking challenge on different world tours and Grand Prix and all that stuff. So it's definitely a worthwhile game. It's split screen. It's permanent split screen like Super Mario Kart, so there's no way to get rid of the split screen. But it is a joy to play, and it's very fun. If Super Nintendo ever has a mini or plug and play, this is the game, the only racing game that I would prefer to be included among the other classics. Next game, this. Nobody likes this game, but I do. Doom. So yeah, that reddish bloodish cart. Yeah, so yeah, the reason nobody liked this game is, one, the control is not steady enough, two, the graphics is not that good, and three, there's no save state. So if Super Nintendo Mini ever comes out, it'll make this game feel a lot better. For one, it'll probably have built-in cheats. For two, it'll probably have save states. And for three, if it's HDMI, it'll have like graphic filters that'll make this look good. So yeah, that's Doom right here. So, and considering that this is one of two of the only first-person shooter on the Super Nintendo, having this on Super Nintendo Mini will also be a joy to play too. Next up, as much as I like Ninja Turtles 4, I love this game more. Super Double Dragon. I just started the original Double Dragon in the NES. Really love that game, but that game does not have multiplayer. So yeah, considering that the NES Mini is gonna include the first one, might as well have the Super Nintendo include the fourth one. So this is Super Double Dragon. In Japan, it's called Return of Double Dragon. Basically, me and a lot of my friends call it Double Dragon 4, considering that the fifth one is based on the cartoon. So nobody likes the fifth one. It's a fighting game and it sucks. But this one, it's great. Next up, including to the other list of RPG, is this game right here, Breath of Fire 2. So Breath of Fire 2 is one of the fewer RPGs that I love to play back in the days. I played this before I played Final Fantasy 3 and Chrono Trigger. So, and at the time I didn't realize it was an RPG because RPG was still a new thing back in the days. But yeah, I rent this several times, try it, really love it. Will really highly appreciate it if it was included with the Super Nintendo Mini. So Breath of Fire 2. I also got the GBA versions of this, so that's what I like to say, my great joy in playing this. So I really love this game a bunch. If you haven't had a chance to play it, I regularly recommend you playing it. But yeah, like I said, if there's a Super Nintendo Mini, this game needs to be in it. Okay, next game. You can't have Street Fighter without this game. This is Mortal Kombat 2. I mean, the first Mortal Kombat games on Super Nintendo sucks, but when it comes to Mortal Kombat 2, Super Nintendo does it best. And Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo delivers the best. And at the time, this is the closest version to the arcade games you'll ever get. So for Super Nintendo, the Super Nintendo Mini to have this game will be a godsend. Next up, we got this game, Tetris Attack. If there's any puzzle game that Nintendo would like to include on the Super Nintendo Mini plug and play, or any plug and play for that matter, Tetris Attack would be a great recommendation for that. I mean, there's no reason for them not to include it. There's other games like Yoshi's Cookies or Wario Woods or Kirby's Avalanche or all that other puzzle games out there, Tetris, Dr. Mario, and all that stuff. But of all of those, none came close to the awesome qualities of this game. I mean, Tetris Attack has everything a puzzle game should have. It got a ton of fun modes to play, a lot of challenges, versus mode, multiplayer modes, a nice cast of colorful characters, all that stuff. So if you have not played this game, I recommend you get it because it's a cheap little game. You can get it online for at least 10 to 15 bucks at the most. But it would be really, really great if this is a part of a Super Nintendo plug and play, because if it's not, then there's something wrong with Nintendo. Next, I want to see this game on the Super Nintendo plug and play. Contra 3, The Alien Wars. There's no reason for Nintendo not to include it because Contra is an instant classic on any Nintendo system. They didn't give us Contra 1, they gave us Super C instead. Super C is still a good game, but not including the third game would be a mistake if they ever bothered to make a plug and play for a Super Nintendo, that is. So yeah, Nintendo, if you're gonna make a Super Nintendo plug and play, remember Contra 3. And last but not least, we have this game, my all-time favorite, UN Squadron. One of the best simulation and shooting game for Super Nintendo. So yeah, knowing Capcom, they'll probably never include this game on any compilations. Even if they do include it, they're not gonna include this version though. But hopefully when Nintendo had a Super Nintendo Mini, this will be a great recommendation for that too. Because if it has this game in there, I would definitely buy it. It's one of the best games, one of my all-time favorites. So if it doesn't include it, then it's a missed opportunity on their part. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the games that I want to see when it comes to Super Nintendo Minis for this 25th anniversary Super Nintendo. So yeah, in terms of plug and play and all that stuff, that's pretty much all I had to discuss. Also, when it comes to Super Nintendo Minis, this controller, the Nintendo Super Famicom controller, Nintendo could pretty much just use this one or make a replica that looks exactly like this. Because as you know, coming down from below is this thing. Yeah, this is the Wii Remote plug. So you could plug this Nintendo Super Famicom controller as a Wii Classic controller. And hopefully it works on the NES Classic Edition as well, because there's no point in making it looking like this when it doesn't work. So it'll probably work. Hopefully the NES Classic Editions will hopefully it'll improve with that too. So yeah, this controller, if you have this controller already, and if Nintendo ever gonna make a Super Nintendo Mini, I really recommend just releasing this controller. And maybe design the button here a little bit better too, because I mean they're good the way they are, but I really want the Y and X to be concave like what Super Nintendo is, but keep the color of the Super Famicom button right here. Yeah, make it a lot more like what Retrobit made it. Retrobit did make a controller that looks a lot like this, but instead of this being convex all the time, it's concave. Only difference is that it only available on this handheld, so they did not have that controller. I mean, TTX made that controller, but hopefully Nintendo will take TTX into mind and make the diamond layout similar to that, because I don't really like how Y and X is convex like that when I got used so much to the concave buttons. So that's my take on the Super Nintendo Mini, if there ever will be a Super Nintendo Mini. The 25th anniversary of Super Nintendo, the 25th anniversary of Sonic, Can't wait to play those 2 games that Sega is bringing. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. You guys have a great day.